Hello, I'm Matt and welcome to Badger Workshop. I love this old saw I restored earlier in the year, but it's designed to be a rip saw and doesn't have a tilting arbor. I thought I could do without that feature, but I've actually found it really limiting. So what I've decided to do is move it and set it up in the garage where I actually store all my wood. So now if I've got anything that needs resawing, I can take it off the rack and do it in the garage before moving it into the workshop. I'm doing all this because Mart reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to try one of their Clarke tools. I had a look on their website and I was having a look at table saws that had a tilting arbor, and I went for this 12-inch Contractors Saw because it's got a nice quiet induction motor and I really didn't want to go back to having a universal motor machine. This has just come in time because I've been holding off doing a few projects where I needed to cut some 45s. This is not going to be a review of the saw as I've only just got it. I'm just going to show you how it all goes together as people have found that helpful in the past. There's a link down below under the video to the saw if you want to take a look at it. The first thing I'm going to do is dig through and find the instruction manual instead of just rushing into it. With the manual dug out, I can get the fire going, make myself a cup of tea and sit down and have a little read. It looks pretty simple to put together, and I read a few reviews, people saying it takes a couple of hours. And that sounds about right, because it took me 4 hours with filming it, and filming a project normally doubles the time. The first thing it says to do is get everything out of the box, lay it out, and check you have all the components that are listed in the manual. So I got all the small bits out, and got them laid out on the bench, and then I could get the main body of the saw out. This is a pretty heavy unit. I think it said it was 50 something kilograms on the box, so I could just tip it over and slide out the main body. This has got a pressed steel table, and I think people worry about them not being flat. But I've used one before and found it very flat, and you can actually make some adjustments, not like on the cast aluminium tops. I checked through the list and all the bits are there. There's also 3 little bags of nuts and bolts and all the other bits, so I get them emptied out into piles. The first job is to get the legs attached. This one has got a cutout for the NVR switch. Each leg goes on with 4 nuts, bolts and washers, which all need a 10mm spanner or socket. The legs and the tabletop are both numbered, so you just need to match up the corresponding numbers for each leg. The instructions say not to over tighten anything, so there's a bit of wiggle room left. This will make it easier to fit some bracing later, and then at the end you tighten everything up. With all the legs attached, it's time to get the braces on. The 2 long ones first for the sides. These are L-shaped, and one surface is wider than the other, and that faces downwards towards the tabletop. With the 2 long ones in place, the short ones can go on, and you can see why having the legs on loosely makes this easier. These go on with the same nuts and bolts, and you can see there's a little hole to join them together, so I'm going to come back later if I've got bolts left and do that. The NVR switch can now be fitted, and that just goes in, and there's a couple of self-trapping screws that go in through the side. It comes with a pair of wheels that go on the 2 back legs. When it's all put together, the saw can then be tilted backwards and wheeled around the workshop. It has this extension for an outfeed, and the instructions tell you how to fit it on the back, but looking at it, it can also be fitted on the side and comes with different braces to do that. I'm going to fit it on the back as per the instructions for now, but might change my mind later on. One of the bolts we've already put into the leg needs to come out to attach it, and then these braces go onto the end of the table and onto the cross brace. Again, with the same nuts and bolts as everything else, so no need to change spanners and sockets. One of the other things I like about the design of these saws is they have an enclosed blade housing to keep all the dust in, and then a 4-inch port goes at the bottom. The instructions now say to get a friend to help you to tip it over, but as I have no friends, I just had to struggle on my own. But actually, it wasn't too bad to do at all. Now this was my favourite bit of the instructions. It says to give the whole unit a good shake. With everything levelled out and in place, now you can go round and tighten all those nuts up. On the top, the blade has an insert plate with 6 screws. In the future, I'm probably going to come back and make a wooden 0 insert plate for it, but for now, I just get this removed so we can install the riving knife. I raise the blade fully to be able to get better access to it. The saw comes with a tool for changing the blade and the riving knife, so I use that just to loosen the nut off. Then the riving knife can be slipped into place, and the instructions show you how much of a gap it needs around the blade. In the box there's also a couple of really thin shims that can be used to align the riving knife, but mine didn't need that. When I'm happy with the position, it can just be all tightened up. On the right hand side, this little bracket needs to be fitted for the hose to clip into. This involved taking out a couple of the bolts from the top of the leg and putting them back in again through this. The saw comes with a hose that fits into the 4-inch port at the bottom, and then it goes up into this bracket and onto the crown guard, so you get extraction from 2 positions. So I couldn't see in the instructions that it tells you to do this, but as I've got nuts and bolts left over, I'm going to bolt all these braces together in the corner. Now I get the rails for the fence on. First this one at the top, which involves again taking out another nut and bolt from the top of the leg to get it put on. A couple of longer square-headed bolts can go in from the back into these square holes. Then those bolts we took out from the leg can go through the fence, and they get a couple of black washers on to keep the fence away from the body of the saw. Now the fence can be put back on, with those bolts going back through the top of the legs and those longer bolts going through the top of the fence. The shorter bolts can then get the nuts put back on and tightened up, and these long bolts sticking out the front then get these black star knobs. The side fence goes on almost the same, but it doesn't need the star knobs or the black washers. You just need to remove a few of the bolts from the legs and then get it put on. The fence itself is made up of 2 bits, this aluminium extrusion and then a T-bar to run on the track. To attach them together, a couple of bolts go through the aluminium extrusion, then into the other bit, and then can get bolted down. They attach with some wing nuts so the aluminium can slide back and forth for different operations. The last job is to get these couple of handles put on the front. They come ready put together in the box, so you actually need to unbolt them so you can get them put onto the frame. Again, the same nuts and bolts to put them together as everything else. When they're on, you can use these to lift them up onto the wheels to slide the saw around. Always helpful to be able to move bits of equipment so you can do some cleaning under it. It comes with a push stick and a block, and it has this little hook on the side to keep the push stick nice and safe. And that's it all put together. So now we can make a test cut. I've just got a little scrap of oak here we'll try cutting down. The T-bar of the fence slides into this track, and then you use these 2 star knobs to tighten it down into place. This saw is a 305mm blade, so it's quite a good depth of cut, and it has that nice quiet induction motor. It seems to have plenty of power, and even with the stock blade it cuts this oak like butter. So now the fence can be repositioned. It slides off the front and then onto the side. Then those wing nuts can be loosened to reposition this aluminium so it doesn't get cut by the blade. You can now use this to do some cross cutting. But also you can loosen the knob, tilt it to any angle. I'm going to go for 45 and then make some cuts at an angle. And of course the blade can tilt too, which is what I'm going to use on next week's project. So, pretty pleased with how it's working so far, and you'll see it in a project next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreons, and please subscribe for more videos.